Hello, students. It is Sunday, September 18th. This is a video update for JMS 494. I've decided to try something different. I'm doing this one as a play posit so that I want you to watch it. I need you to watch it. You're going to get points for watching it. I did one last week that I thought was really cool, really helpful. Only got about 88 views on YouTube. Considering that the class enrollment is over 130, that leads me to believe that a lot of people aren't watching the videos. Hopefully this will take care of that. Okay, I'm going to go over some of the packbacks from last week and then talk about what's due this week. Okay, so there was a question. I have some screenshots here. Yeah, the topic last week was about ethics, and ethic relates to sort of different moral codes, rules about what's right and what's wrong. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you necessarily should do it. And when it comes to the media industries, just because you can report some information or just because you have some information doesn't mean you necessarily should publish that or reveal that information. Claire is asking right here, is it ever ethical to report on a situation where there was a casualty before the family members have been informed? I would say generally no. I mean, as a rule of thumb, you want to inform the family before you start reporting that someone was killed. However, there's always howevers. None of these situations are neat and tidy. There could definitely be or easily be a situation where something dramatic happens and you need to report that information. Take, for example, horrible incident of World Trade Center. I mean, you can't not report. If you're a journalist, you cannot not report, right? You have to report. World Trade Center towers collapse. Everyone who had a family member that was working that day wasn't informed. Maybe they found about it on the news. So that's a situation where something really dramatic happens. Or I just was thinking of a situation as I was driving to campus today. Maybe there's like a accident with a school bus and maybe some casualties. You know, it knocks out a major road. Maybe it closes Interstate 8 right here. That's something that the news would report immediately. They're not going to go around and try and identify every single family member who had a child potentially on that school bus first. That's a big thing. You've closed a major road, closed an interstate. Putting that stuff aside, I think in general, you should not report people's deaths without informing the family. On a somewhat related note, there was an ethical dilemma that came up a couple of months ago, maybe a few months ago. Horrible school shooting in Texas. Uvalde, I think that was where all these kids are killed. Horrible incident. You know, kids just killed with a machine gun, I believe it was, or an assault rifle. A news outlet in Austin, Texas got video of the aftermath, not the actual shooting, but they had video of all the dead bodies. Pretty must have been just really grotesque. And they released that video online without the parents at that point knew that their children had been murdered. But they didn't know that this video was going to be shared, and that presented this ethical issue. On the one hand, news reporters felt like we have an obligation to tell the truth and reveal the truth, and American society cannot have an honest debate about gun violence if we don't actually see the destruction that can come from guns. But then you also have the argument of, well, what's the point of airing this video or releasing this video online? It's just reopening some pretty deep wounds for the parents. What's the point of doing this? So anyway, good question. I thought that was a very good question. But the most commented on topic of the week was this happened. I mean, and I guess it does relate to the topic of last week about ethics, because there was a video about portraying people accurately, issues of representation, and not maligning or stereotyping people or perpetuating racial discrimination. That does relate to ethics, but many people related it to this current debate about, because Disney's making a live action version of The Little Mermaid, and they've changed The Little Mermaid from a white character. I mean, I guess Ariel, that's her name. I guess she's white now, being an African-American character. And then here, this Taylor actually asked the most commented on question. Taylor, your question wins the prize for the question that got the most responses. And I'll just talk specifically about The Little Mermaid. There's memes going around. I presume some of you have seen the memes. I think I learned of this issue through memes and comments. I'm from a different generation. I didn't grow up watching Little Mermaid. First of all, I'll just give you my opinion, and then I'll present maybe an alternate point of view. if you can watch a movie and suspend your disbelief and believe that there's this half woman, half fish character, you can believe that, but somehow changing the skin color to making it a woman of color, somehow that offends you. That's just bizarre, right? We're not talking about a real human character. We're not talking about a historical figure. This is a made up fictional character. It's all make believe anyway, and it's a mermaid. It's a mermaid. So I think it's kind of silly for people to get upset over it. And I do think issues of representation are important. And as a straight white man, I see myself in images like me, and advertisements and messages catered to me all the time. I mean, I'm the default user for American society, right? A straight white male. I'm the default, a cisgendered straight white male at that. I am the default user. Everything is pretty much designed for me and what they think I'm going to like. But I'm married to a Pakistani woman. And so I've been married many years, 31 years. So I can see life through her eyes, and I know that it's important. If you feel marginalized in any way, to see someone or some family, people speaking your language, people who look like you, who sound like you, part of your culture, that's incredibly empowering. That's incredibly empowering. So I'm all for, and I totally encourage all kind of issues of representation and changes to representation. And I think, we should portray the world in all its varied glory and all of our aspects of pop culture. So I'm totally fine with, a black mermaid. That does make no problem with me. However, I'll say this, just for the sake of discussion, please do not take this out of context. Please do not take this out of context. For the sake of discussion, I can understand why people might be upset and not be racist, right? I can understand why people would be upset about changing the Little Mermaid and not necessarily be racist. If you're younger than me, right? People from Southern California are obsessed with Disney. I don't get it. It's like a cult. You people who are into Disney are like a cult, but whatever. You grew up with Little Mermaid, you got t-shirts, posters, books, DVDs, you got all that stuff. You grow up, it becomes part of your mind, like a fabric of your being. I love the Little Mermaid. I love the Little Mermaid. And then when a movie comes out that has changed some element of what you consider to be your story, something you grew up with, I could see why you'd be a little perturbed. Like, hey, I grew up with this. I know the Little Mermaid. That's not the Little Mermaid. So I could see why people might be a little perturbed. I'm a Star Wars geek. I grew up with Star Wars, and then in one of the special editions or one of the restored editions, they changed it. For you Star Wars geeks, you know what I'm talking about. They changed a plot point where instead of Han Solo shooting first, he kills this bounty hunter called Greedo. Spoiler, he kills Greedo. Instead of Han Solo shooting first, they made Greedo shoot first, which kind of changes Han's character a little bit. That upset people like me. Like, no, we know Star Wars. We grew up with Star Wars. We saw it in the theater. We played with the toys. We read the comic books, and that's not Star Wars. You can't change it like that. So I can understand why people get upset when they change things. Another argument, again, not a racist argument. This is not a racist argument. At least I don't think so. Another argument is that if you want to increase representation of people of color and give them more positive representation, more varied representation, then why not create entirely new characters? Why take a character that already exists and just change the color of that character? Why not create a whole new underwater fish character? And that might be a better way to create new representation rather than taking something that already exists and just simply changing it that way. Anyway, I'm not opposed to it. I'm fine with it. I'm down with it. And I do think sort of the concern over it is a little silly. It's just a little silly. We're talking about a live action kids movie. And I don't think it changes things dramatically to say that now Little Mermaid is a black woman, right? Okay. All right. That's what I want to talk about for there. Oh, there was another comment. I didn't get a screenshot of it, but someone asked a question about social media influencers. If you were paid a lot of money, would you promote a product on your social media channel that you do not believe in? Anyone who's interested in advertising, marketing, public relations, and I think some of y'all are, anyone who's interested in advertising, marketing, public relations, or doing any kind of public outreach like that, you really have to ask yourself, what are you going to do when you are on the job in the workplace and you are asked to promote or sell a product or represent a client that you do not agree with, you find morally reprehensible, you find disgusting? What are you going to do? Okay. It's one thing if you say your job is to make advertisements or online ads or run a Twitter account, whatever, and you like Burger King and they want you to promote McDonald's. To me, that's not a big deal. That's like, it's not going to hurt anybody. You like Burger King, they want you to promote McDonald's. Or you like Herbal Essence shampoo and they want you to promote Pantene. I think that's a shampoo, right? That's not a big deal. But when it comes to a product that can have negative social or health effects on society, that's a bigger issue. Say you work for a company and they want you to promote a new type of bubblegum cigarette that kids are going to like to smoke, that you might draw the line at, right? You might say, hey, I'm not down with this, but that's your job. That's what the company's decided to do. The company decided to move nicotine products into the child space with bubblegum flavored cigarettes. Or maybe you don't agree with the way the product is being marketed. The issues in my head, because I just saw that series Dope Sick on Hulu. Very good. I recommend Dope Sick on Hulu. Very, very good. Which is about Purdue Pharma. I think that's their name. The makers of OxyContin, a highly, highly addictive narcotic drug, which was falsely marketed and sold first to doctors and to patients as something that was non-addictive. And it turns out Oxy is quite addictive, and you can get very high off of it. Just like heroin, you can get hooked on it. And the point was that the company knew this and deliberately hid information and used false information and manipulated the FDA with corruption and other means to sell their product. I was thinking, this is a pretty evil corporation. This is a pretty evil, and I don't use that word lightly. What would you do if your job was in public relations and that was your client? How would you represent a client like that? So you want to go in the workplace, marketing, public relations, public outreach, anything like that. What are you going to do if you're presented with this situation? One of the reasons that I left working professionally in Los Angeles, I've built websites to promote TV shows. One of the reasons I left was for these reasons, to be honest. I didn't feel like the products that I was being asked to promote were making the world a better place. Not that they were evil, not that they were selling cigarettes to children or getting people hooked on narcotics, but I just thought they were stupid garbage and not putting anything intellectually uplifting or positive into the world. And do I want to spend my skills as a human being promoting something that I think is garbage? Or would I rather use my skills as a human being to promote knowledge, which hopefully, inshallah, I'm doing right here. Anyway, so thank you for all the discussion on the pack back. There's not one due this week. There's one coming up. Let me take a look. Yeah, there's not a pack back due this week. This week is about libel. There is one due next week, which is about privacy. Okay. So anything that we discuss or anything that is in your head or anything you read this week would be fine to post about next week. Okay. The topic for this week. Okay. The topic for this week, we're now in module 5. We're going to look at libel. Libel is when you publish or broadcast something that defames someone's reputation, especially if it's false. You can get in trouble for doing that. Chapter 4 talks about the main concepts, and then chapter 5 is about the most common defenses that are used when media practitioners find themselves accused of libel. So take a look at the 2 video lectures, chapter 4 and chapter 5. There is not a pack back this week, but something I did post for you, which I think maybe will spur discussion. You know, we don't have a pack back this week, but maybe it will spur discussion in an upcoming week. Relates to this issue of libel and limitations. You know, under the First Amendment, there are limitations. We've talked about that previously. And this issue is still going on. This news story is still going on. This gentleman named Alex Jones and some false information he said about another school shooting, Sandy Hook. And it was so egregious. What he said was so egregious and so wrong that he's now under some severe financial penalties. And he's trying to evade that. He's trying to shift money from one account to another to claim he doesn't have the money. But I do think you should take a look at the story, and maybe it'll make more sense after you watch the video lectures about libel. There is a limit as to what you can say, and this gentleman went way, way beyond that limit. And then finally, the final paper. I don't expect you to have the final paper done. We're not anywhere near the end of the semester. Oh, look, someone has already submitted their final paper idea already. Anyway, didn't mean to reveal that. Sorry about that. Take a look at the instructions for the final paper. If you haven't taken a look at them already, you should do so. They were published, I think, in week 2. I assure you the final paper instructions are up there. For this week, I just want you to have about a paragraph about what you're doing, what you're going to write about. It can be an issue that relates to the First Amendment or freedom of expression in the United States, or it could be something from outside the United States, looking at maybe how another country doesn't have freedom of expression, or how they maybe manage freedom of expression differently than we do. You could do some sort of international comparisons, or it could just be about, a semi-recent news. By recent, I mean semi-recent. Um, I'm flexible as to what I consider recent. And there's also a second option where you go to the library and look at some news stories there. Anyway, I encourage you to take the second option seriously. But anyway, it's all spelled out in the instructions. So that's what it is. We're going to watch chapter 4 video lecture. You're going to watch chapter 5 video lecture, and then you're going to turn in your idea for the final paper. Thank you for watching.